Hey everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate, day 79. It is Sunday, May the 21st, 2017. Well, as has been the case for the last 2 or 3 days, things are pretty slow, specifically on the TowerGate issue. The issue of Obama's surveillance of the Trump administration has a lot to do with the fact that they just appointed the independent counsel or special prosecutor, and we have other things that are gobbling up all the oxygen out of the room and basically taking control of the news cycle. So some of these things are relative to the overall thing that we're looking at here. So we'll just go ahead and go with what's moving. And again, just a couple things regarding TowerGate. I think I've already touched on one of these before, but someone left a comment for me. I think it may have been Mara about James Comey coming back to testify as a private citizen. As I said, I think before when I commented on this, is that I don't expect anything different from James Comey when he comes back, whether he's coming back as a private citizen or whatever. Obviously, because he is a private citizen, he's no longer the FBI director. He cannot do any more closed sessions or classified sessions or whatever you want to call that. He's only really able to go out and do a public hearing, which he's done plenty of. We've seen James Comey. The fact is, he really can't change his story. He can't suddenly come out and say, okay, well, now I'm not the FBI director anymore, so I can go ahead and say things I couldn't say before. I mean, he'd lose all credibility, and he's lacking credibility now. So I don't think we're going to see anything different from James Comey. I think we're going to get some questions about his firing and whether or not the Democrats are going to try to get him to say that he was fired because he was pursuing an investigation on Trump. And, you know, he's already stated 3 times that there was no investigation because there was not enough evidence to support an investigation. So, as far as Trump personally. So, things going on around Trump, his campaign, people in his campaign, having association with Russia, whatever. Yeah, that's all part of what's going on in the House and the Senate. And now that will be taken up by the special prosecutor, Mueller. So I just don't expect anything different from James Comey. I mean, I think he'll do the same thing he always does. He just, you know, I don't expect anything to come out of it. I think it's all to do about nothing. Just another opportunity for Democrats to try to embellish their narrative, Republicans to try to walk the line and not draw too much fire from the base, while at the same time trying to protect their backsides with the establishment. So I think that's what these hearings have revealed, and I think that will continue. I don't think anything different will come from James Comey at all. I think it's much to do about nothing. We have also the story, the Seth Rich story, really moving fast in the last week, especially the last couple days. We now have the owner-operator of Kim.com, who is a fairly well-respected internet presence because, let's face it, I think he was the guy who founded Mega Upload, which at one point had about 450 million users. We know that he has some relationship with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And of course, he's recently come out over the last couple days with some tweets stating that he knows that Seth Rich was the leaker, that he was part of it, or he's involved in that process that took place with the leaks coming from the DNC via Seth Rich to WikiLeaks. And now he's saying that he'll be coming out on Tuesday and making a formal statement with his attorneys. Now, he will not come back to the U.S. I believe he is in New Zealand. And I believe he is European. And he may be a New Zealander, I don't know. But anyway, I believe he is in New Zealand. He won't come back to the States because the United States still has legal issues with him regarding the file sharing website Mega Upload for copyright infringement and various other things that they've tacked onto him. So he's not going to come back to the U.S. Because he'll be arrested, most likely. And he's also got his own counter lawsuit going, trying to recover apparently servers and various other things that were taken from him in a raid in New Zealand. So anyway, it's very interesting. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I hate to jump the gun on these types of things because you get sucked into a lot of clickbait. You get sucked into a lot of things that don't pan out to be true. So I'm just going to kind of hold my water on the Kim.com thing. I think he is legitimate, but then again, we are going to have to see what he has to say on Tuesday when he comes out with his press conference, and we'll also have to see if he tells us a little bit more about specifically what sort of evidence he is talking about. If he can produce emails which will show on the header that Seth Rich was the originator of the email that may have been sent to him and then Kim.com, and then he sent or forwarded the emails onto Julian Assange, then that would clearly show in the header. It would show in the email. We would be able to see that. And if he's got that type of a bit of evidence, if that's the evidence that he has, then that would be solidly overwhelming evidence that in fact Seth Rich was the leaker, which of course pretty much blows the entire Russian narrative out of the water, which would in fact blow the Russian Trump narrative out of the water, because almost the entire entire narrative that's being put forth by the DNC, by the liberals, by the Democrats, is that the Russians hacked the DNC in an effort to help Trump. They leaked that information to WikiLeaks and blah, blah, blah. You know the rest of the story. So, yes, if you can prove that it wasn't the Russians, and you can prove it was in fact Seth Rich, that totally changes the dynamic of the story. And that's why it will be so interesting to see what evidence that Kim.com is going to be able to show, and what he might say in his statement. And it'll be also very interesting to see how much coverage it gets. I don't expect it'll get any coverage from MSNBC, CNN, or anything like that. They're doing everything they can to ignore the story, and whenever it does manage to pop up on them, they try to debunk it. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to avoid the Seth Rich issue as much as possible. But you have Fox News, specifically Hannity. You have a lot of the conservative talk radio, Limbaugh, Hannity, Brian Kilmeade, Mark Levin. They're all talking about this, and they have very, very large audiences. And if it continues, it will be nearly impossible to keep this out of cracking the mainstream and showing up in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times or what have you. So we'll just have to wait and see. But right now, this is the biggest dynamic that is happening regards to the overall investigation of Russia, Trump Russia, and even Obama surveillance. Again, until the hearings fire back up again, and until we start seeing some of these people come in and testify, I think everyone is laying low, keeping their mouth shut, and probably getting legal advice on how to proceed forward as the hearings move forward. And again, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so another thing is that came up from one of my subscribers, Donnie Shepard. Wanted to respond to that because, yes, Donnie, I did see the Still report. I watch Bill Still all the time. Been watching him for years. And I highly recommend The Money Masters or The Secret of Oz to any of you that haven't seen those two videos by Bill Still. So anyway, Donnie Shepard's talking about this most recent revelation, again relating to the Seth Rich issue. And so what this issue is that there is now a surgery resident, basically an intern, like an entry-level doctor, who was on duty the night that Seth Rich came in. And he is stating that Seth Rich came in with 3 wounds, 1 entry and exit wound, and 1 entry wound only. It says here that this resident is saying that he was present when they treated the wounds, and that the wounds were not life-threatening, that they did the basic surgery they needed to do, and then they sent him up to ICU. Where he would be generally in ICU, you're under almost constant care by medical people all around you. But in this particular case, they took Seth Rich up to ICU, and then at some point, a couple hours after he came in, a bunch of uniformed and non-uniformed police-type individuals came in and threw everyone out of the room. And then they secured the room, put guards at the door, and then the medical staff was told that that individual in that room was a VIP. We're talking about Seth Rich. and that they were not to go into that room. And of course, even if they tried, they would not be able to get in because they put armed guards there. Now, it appears, according to this surgery resident, that Seth Rich was alive for at least 8 hours afterwards, which is not what it says in the police report. The police report says that he died a couple hours after arriving at the hospital, but this surgery resident is saying no, he was alive for at least 8 hours afterwards because he was there at the shift change. And at the shift change, they were told, that's when they were told, do not go into that room, which would have been 8 hours after he came in. So he was still alive, apparently. And so they weren't allowed to have any medical personnel enter his room. And then, of course, he ends up dying. And according to this medical technician, this surgery resident, when he came out of OR, he was stable and his wounds had been treated, and there was no reason to believe whatsoever he wasn't going to make a full recovery. But somehow he ends up dying. So this resident says that things were very, very crazy and that he had never seen anything like it before, and it was very fishy. So this is being reported by Bill Still, and I believe his original source was somewhere else. I don't believe he is the original source, but he gave some very good advice to this person, which is it won't take them long to figure out who this person is. So whoever this person is, I would highly advise them to go public immediately. Immediately. When you come out with something like this, and then you try to stay silent, I mean, it's not going to take long for someone to figure out who you are. And, you know, you could be in danger that way. If you're going to come out with this type of information, you want to do it on the largest platform you can. That way there's a bright spotlight on you, and it makes it very difficult for someone to take revenge against you because now you're so high profile and so much in the spotlight. So I would urge this person to follow Bill Still's advice, that they've already come out and made this comment, which I believe they made on an internet thread on a website similar to a 4chan or something like that. It wasn't 4chan, but it was another website like that. But nevertheless, this individual has come out and made this comment that they were there present the night that Seth Rich came in, and this is what their comment is. So the Seth Rich thing is really going crazy the last few days, and again, it's going to be very interesting to see if the corporate media can hold this story down, because it's just busting loose everywhere. We'll see what Kim.com has to say on Tuesday. We'll find out if this source that we just talked about decides to go public. I'm sure that Sean Hannity or others like him would like to interview this individual. But the Seth Rich story is exploding again, and it is a major key to the overall events that are taking place now with the investigations into Russia and the whole 9 yards. Again, it will be very, very difficult for Mr. Mueller, as I said in yesterday's video, to do this investigation without taking a look at Seth Rich, and specifically his computer and also the servers, the DNC servers, as I mentioned in yesterday's video. Oh, which, by the way, yesterday's video, I apologize for yesterday's video. It got really screwed up in the editing process. What happens is my camera does a 35 minutes, it'll put on one file. If your video goes beyond 35 minutes, it creates a second file, so that when you upload the video, you have to do an edit and edit the two together, splice them together. Now, the YouTube video editor is junk. I've had to use it 2 or 3 times now. And what happened is it put video 2 in front of video 1. So what you get from my most recent video is the first 11 minutes really should have been the end of the video. And then you get 11 minutes into it, and you get what should have been the beginning of the video. So you get 11 minutes of the ending and then the beginning. Anyway, so I do apologize. It's screwed up. I tried to fix it. You can't really do it, so it is what it is. Hopefully you still got something out of the video anyway, even though it's kind of weird. But anyway, the information is there, and I covered a lot of things on Mueller and how the investigation will probably have to play out. And that's where I mentioned that I think he has no choice but to subpoena the DNC servers. I think he is going to have to look at Seth Rich's computer, which appears to be in the custody of the FBI. I don't think that the Seth Rich story can be held down much longer. It's just busting loose. we'll wait and see what Kim.com has to say on Tuesday, and we'll follow up on that. So anyhow, that's basically what's going on. Day 79, TowerGate, May the 21st, 2017. Thank you all for tuning in. Bye.